How do you learn who you really are? It's not found in books. It's found on the battlefield. How do you learn who you really are? It's not found in books. It's found on the battlefield. All right, what's up, warriors? Welcome back to Battlefield of the Mind. I'm hanging out with Dr. Stephen Paul Edwards today, and we're going to let him do what everybody else does. Tell us who you are, what you do, and what you're about, and I can't wait to hear more about it.
Yeah, I always wonder, do people really care? I mean, I'm here to talk about how, I went through a pretty toxic relationship and what I learned from that. And maybe some of the things that we pull out in this conversation can help you, or maybe we're just going to entertain you. Either way, it's going to be fun. That's my thought.
I actually do think is a good point on, do you remember there's a show a long time ago, Tom Likas? I actually really enjoyed the way he would do his thing because it's very natural for people to go like, hey, Stephen, how you doing? And he would just go, do you really care? Like, do you want to know? Or
are you just asking? Yeah.
Most people would be like, I was just asking. I really don't know.
Exactly.
Then we're skipping it. In this case.
Yeah, can you imagine, though, if you just started saying, well, actually, my mom's ill and I got a really bad leg, and then people just completely turn off. All right, but
that's a real thing.
Get into a little bit more detail of background in my life?
In this case, though,
okay,
I actually do care. So I do want to know. And anybody who's here is going to care, too. So if they're hanging out here, they're like, do I want to spend the next hour, 2 hours, 3 hours listening to this guy? Well, let's see, because they care.
Okay, my background, maybe not. I always think it's going to come out of the conversation, but let's do it. So I was born in Blackpool, England. Right, which is, as I say to people, is a good place to be from, right? And I grew up there, had a very traumatic childhood. And I say very because nobody really cares about that, because everybody had a very traumatic childhood in my experience. But how traumatic it is really our interpretation of it, right? But for me, it was traumatic. And of course, we think we're the only one when we're going through it, because we don't go to school and get all our buddies together in the playground and go, hey, man, is your life at home really bad too? Are you going through trauma? Right? So we don't want to talk about it. We're embarrassed. And so, I say that nothing ever happens to you in this life. Everything happens for you. But as a child, you don't know that, right? And as far as you're concerned, you really are a victim because you don't have any say in what your parents tell you to do, the beliefs they pour on you, or your experience at home. And I felt that, so my parents were very controlling, a lot of gaslighting, a lot of situations where you didn't feel like you could speak, or, I didn't just feel like I was walking on eggshells. I felt like I was walking on glass, right? So when I went to bed, I used to have to bang my head on the pillow until I was exhausted to actually get to sleep. It's the only way I could get to sleep. I used to make this weird noise as well. So I felt like it was in a straitjacket. So it's not probably any irony that by the time I was 16, I was in a mental asylum, right? So I went through all that, had electroconvulsive therapy, and then went through other traumas at school, which were difficult to get through. Anyway, so I carried all this stuff through my life with guilt and shame, and only living half a life, because I couldn't tell anybody about those things. And so I was hiding. I was running away from those things, and I was hiding from them. And of course, as you know, those things show up in your life. Those patterns show up in your life, in all areas of your life. So all I wanted to do when I was a kid was run away from home. So I did. I ran away 8 times, but they caught me every time because I wasn't very good at it. And then when I finally got away from home, I just kept running, man. I just kept going. I didn't necessarily realize that consciously, obviously, but I was. And across the street from where I lived as a kid, there was a dog that lived in this garden, right? And he was a little terrier, right? So this little terrier had a Napoleon syndrome, right? He thought he was going to fight every dog, right? And so when cars would go by, he'd chase them down the street, And of course, the car was going away anyway, but in the dog's mind, he chased the car away. And the car was running away from him because he was the big dog. Anyway, one day he's chasing this car down the road, and for whatever reason, the car stopped abruptly. So, of course, the dog ran into the back of the car, and it whimpered. It was really hurt, right? So it began running the other way. And you go, well, what was it running from? It was running from the pain. It thought if it ran fast enough, it could outrun the pain. And that was a great metaphor for me. I was running away, and I would throw myself into whatever I was doing because it was a distraction. It meant I didn't have to look back. I didn't have to face myself. I didn't have to face my past. So these motivating factors caused me to really throw myself into whatever I did, and I get really good at it. And I made a lot of money. I was successful, but that wasn't really why I did it. And it didn't make me happy. Right. And so what would happen is, as you know, you can put your will into the world and you can change it for a certain amount of time, but it's freaking exhausting. Right. And so when you're putting yourself into it for 14, 16, 18 hours a day, you can't keep that up. And so eventually you burn out. It all implodes. You take a break. You don't want to do that anymore. And you just go out and do it again. So this was a pattern I did over and over again. So that's kind of my past. I've been through 4 marriages. So that just shows you as well, running away, right? The same thing appears in every area of my life. And that's what patterns do, right? So now, and then I got in this relationship, which was totally crazy. And this is what the book is about, the Venus flytrap, sex lies, and repercussions. Because finally, the universe sat me on my ass and said, okay, now you're going to you're going to learn some real stuff, right? And so this beautiful former supermodel comes in my life. Initially, I think because she's the greatest thing ever to happen to me. And she is, and she was, but in a different way than I first thought. You know, as Carl Jung would say, there's no coincidences. These relationships come in your life for a reason, for you to explore your shadow self, whether it's, the dark night of the soul, whatever it is. And they're a gift. And when you can see them that way, they become very empowering. And so she came into my life as a gift, as a master teacher. I'm very blessed for that. And the fact that I've been able to take the lessons from it and heal myself. I mean, no one's fully healed, right? We're all in the process, but I'm certainly a lot longer along the journey to discovering and being who I really am because of her. So I'm very grateful to her for that. So I don't know, is that a reasonable intro?
It's your intro. If you feel like that's authentic.
I don't have an intro, man, but that's just what came out. I thought that might be interesting to some people.
Yeah, sounds good. And so then it gets into obviously the questions like, all right, distraction from pain. You're running. You're doing fight, flight, freeze, fawns, all the control mechanisms around grieving. And so you said, I've had to grieve. I've got to grieve this stuff. I'm trying to figure out a system. I'm doing a system that would at least giving me money, but I was still trying to figure shit out. During your burnout system, I'm burning myself out. You're also burning out relationships. 4 marriages down, which is heavy and expensive. Like, that's a lot to lose. Now I'm still grieving because now I'm creating a whole new set of grief inside my other system of what I figured out how not to grieve. And now I'm revealing the weak spots, which leads you to this supermodel teacher who is now teaching you about the Venus flytrap. And so now let's get in towards like probably somewhere in between, like, okay, so how did you do the grief towards authenticity to heal, to help people get out of that, leading up to the application or lessons from the book?
Yeah, well, she wasn't teaching me about the Venus flytrap. She was the Venus flytrap, right?
Oh, I got you. I heard it.
Well, what I mean by that is the irony is she named herself. And the way she did that was kind of strange. But it goes to, people tell you who they are within the first few minutes of you meeting them, right? So I'm online and I'm trying to get a date with her, right? Initially, all I could get was a coffee date, right? Which is not really a date, but that was about as far as I could go. Anyway, and then one day she agreed to go for a coffee. The next day she canceled. Oh, so then I have to get her to go on a date. But when finally get her to go agree to go on a date with me, but I want to tie it down, right? I want to get a cancellation again, right? So I said to her as I'm texting her, I said, by the way, what's your favorite flower? Indicating I'm going to get her some flowers, right? So she texted back, bird of paradise. And I texted back, nah, mine too. And then I said, it's a bit expensive though. So what's your second favorite? Now, obviously it's a joke, right? She texted back, Venus flytrap. Instantly, no delay. Now, who asks someone what your second favorite flower is? Nobody, right? So I would never have known that if I had not joked with her. But what feeling did it give me? My intuition went, boom, right? She's dangerous, right? But my ego said, yeah, she's also really cute and I like a bit of danger, right? So I knew from the very beginning, because she said the Venus flytrap. Now, it just ended up being a perfect metaphor for the book because she was trying to trap me from the beginning and devour me. I was the fly just trying to get away, right? But it's also a great metaphor for life. The world is the Venus flytrap. And we're trying to not get captivated by its nectar, right? By the material world, by the things that it wants to draw you into to keep you inside the Venus flytrap or the jaws of the Venus flytrap. And we're constantly trying to get away or not. Yeah, so that's that. So that's where the flytrap came from.
A couple different directions. We can either, I'll be open with you. I'm a lot less interested in how hot this girl is and more interested in this metaphor for the world is the Venus flytrap. I'm like, okay, so what do you mean by the world's the trap? Because I mean, like, I got to hear your perspective. There's a point of view you have, I don't have.
Yeah, well, it's very interesting and important that she was so beautiful because that's what drew me in, right? Because people say, well, you had 20 years experience as a spiritual counselor and in personal development.
What I mean is the beauty of this girl in conjunction to the metaphor of the world is the trap.
Yeah, it is. It's the same thing.
I can see how this girl's intentions may be one thing, but then we have to do the same assumptive intentions for the world. I'm like,
sure.
Maybe. So this is why I want to see your perspective. So,
well, I'm trying to give it to you if you let me, right? Okay. So I'm giving you this perspective that she being beautiful is very important because we're attracted to what the world has to offer in the same way. We're lured in to what we think is beautiful, which is a trap. We think we want a car, we think we want a house, whatever the material world has to give you is what we're lured into. And we would consider that to be beautiful. So that's where they match together, right? So that's how they are the same metaphor. And the nectar of the Venus flytrap, which draws the fly in and confuses it and stays there, the nectar of the material world is that the material things in life that we're attracted to and we think we want and we believe will make us happy. But of course, they never do.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
What's up, warriors? All right, you guys are listening to this show, and I hope you're loving it. But right now, I need you to know we actually do real deep work psychology. What the Warriors Way mindset is, it's a battlefield philosophy applied to human transformation. Together we rise, and we train our men to be better men every day. There's goodness in you. We want to train you to be undeniably great. And so this isn't branding, this is tactical doctrine to help us so that we train together because our families and this world need strong men again. This is the way. Click the link to join in with our community, start training in our programs today, and I look forward to getting on the battlefield with you.
So are you getting into the intentionality of it? Because like cars are still cool and there's people who are really beautiful, but they're not necessarily a trap. And there are things that are fun to do that doesn't necessarily mean it's trying to get you. So
no.
I mean, like, is it intentionality that makes it different?
What I would say is this, look, it's what attracted you that ends up destroying you, right? It can be. It doesn't have to be. Of course, having a car is not a bad thing, right? But everybody isn't attached to their car, right? It's the attachment, really. But what lures you in is the beauty of it, because you think it's beautiful, right? You think the car is beautiful, but then you become attached to it. And attachment means when you think whatever that material thing is or that person is taken away, you will be worth less, right? That's attachment, right? It's like the saying, it's more difficult for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven than it is for a camel to slip through the eye of the needle. And people misunderstand that, thinking that being rich is wrong. There's nothing wrong with being rich. There's nothing wrong with having a lot of money, but a lot of rich men think they are their possessions and therefore they are possessed by them. Does that make sense?
Oh, no, I know exactly what you're talking about. I'm just curious on your perspective on it. So you're saying it's the attraction attachment that has an identity linked to now that they have it, or if they get it, their worth or their value comes from the possession or the object or the property. And that makes it so that if they were to lose that now, they would lose their identity, lose all of their things. And this has become something to protect or something to, it has to be protected because it's fear-based now. Now I don't want to lose it. I don't want to lose it. I don't want to lose it. But again, if your worth or your value comes from things or external validation, then of course it's easy for it to be destructed or deconstructed because it's not true. It's borrowed or it's taken from others in order to find your worth. No different than I don't know, Gucci bag or a Tom Ford suit. Like these things are like it's just somebody else's name, but you're borrowing worth from something. But if your value comes from objects or items, then your whole worth is a depreciating asset.
It
So
can be, yeah. As you said, it can be. It doesn't have to be. I mean, I've bought Tom Ford jeans and never even known that Tom Ford was anybody. I just bought it because I liked him, right? Because
well, he doesn't even work there anymore, so that's why it's funny.
well, I'm not even. It
That's
doesn't
what's funny about it. It's like
doesn't really matter whether he works there. It was just I liked the jeans, right? I had no idea who Tom Ford was, that he was a clothing designer and his history. I had no idea. I just went into a store, tried on a pair of jeans, and I liked him, and so I bought them. That's my point, right? So it doesn't have to be that you're attached. I didn't think, oh, I got to have a pair of Tom Ford jeans. But let's face it, the vast majority of people, certainly in America, are attached to that stuff. It's like, they got to have the designer label. They've got it, like you said, a Gucci bag, an Hermes bag, or whatever it is, or the Lamborghini or whatever it is. That is what draws us in.
what do you think the attachment is to then? What do you think, like, just your opinion? Like, they're attached to this, then this is where it goes off the rails. Like the idea itself of trying to get whatever they want from it, whether it be loved or belong or to be approved of or be whatever. They want something that may not be bad, but it's the attachment to an idea. Maybe that this is how you get it.
Well, I think all of us, naturally want to be loved, right? It's how we get love that can be misconstrued, right? So the reason they want that Hermes bag or that Lamborghini is ultimately because they think that people are going to love them more, right? They're going to get more love from that. They're going to get more attention from that. But bottom line, love, right? We all want love and we all go about it in slightly different ways. It just seems like we live, as Madonna said a long time ago, in a material world, right? Where people think the material things, external things are going to give them happiness. But the truth is, of course, it won't. The happiness comes from within, right? I mean, you don't have to go anywhere to feel happy, right? You have the power to feel happy anytime you want. People are made to believe, and I say made to believe, we live in a world of make-believe. The corporations, the media, all these social media, other people make us believe that these things will make us happy and be important and be loved more, right? When in reality, none of those things will make you happy. None of those things will fulfill you. And I can speak from experience. I was living in a huge mansion. I had a Rolls Royce. I had 2 Bentleys. I had a lot of stuff, but none of it made me happy. And neither did she, right? Neither did she. Having the supermodel didn't make me happy either, right? But so the reason I say that is not to impress, but to impress upon that those things don't make you happy. Because a lot of people who are broke will say that, and people go, well, you're broke, how do you know, right? Well, I've been very wealthy, and I can tell you it doesn't make you happy. So I can speak from experience rather than, well, I don't have any money, so I'm going to say I don't want to have any money, which a lot of people do, right? They'll say, well, I never wanted, I don't even care about money. Well, you do. You're a fucking liar. You do care about money. You got to have money to live. You can't move without money. Now, and as soon as you say that you do care about money, you're probably not going to have to worry about your bills as much as you do now because you'll have more of it, right? It's all psychological, right? If you say you don't want something, well, great. You're not going to put any attention to it. You're not going to get any. And if you get stuff and you don't put attention to it, take care of it, look after it and appreciate it, it'll go. It'll just disappear, right? So, yeah, and then with Tamaz, which is not a real name, obviously, but she was my heroine, man. I just, I gave myself away, right? So we want to talk about self-esteem, what you think and feel about yourself. It's all mirrored, she mirrored it all back to me beautifully. Now, I'm not saying I got it all right away, but even when I knew in the beginning, and she told me a second favorite flower is the Venus flytrap. Well, like I said, I knew right away she was going to be dangerous. But, I'm thinking, well, I got, 20 years of spiritual counseling or 20 years of, personal development. I'll be good, right? But you lose yourself little by little pieces of giving yourself away, of not doing the things you used to do before you met, taking care of yourself, doing your meditation, working out, reading, juicing, all those little things that the other person, and this is not in every relationship, but a lot of relationships, very often there's a giver and a taker, right? And the taker wants to isolate you so they can devour you. So they are the center of your world and you got nothing else around you. No support network, nothing, right? And the giver wants to give as much as they can give, but they both end up in the realization that it doesn't matter how much I give, it's never going to be enough. And the taker realizes that once they've taken everything the other person has and there's nothing left for them to give them, they're going to go to the next host, right? But you don't always see that coming, even though you might understand that psychologically or mentally. You don't even realize that you're getting deeper and deeper into the situation. The nectar gets stronger and stronger until you're making excuses, or you just don't even bring it up anymore. You just accept it as it is.
Yeah, I see there's multiple things here. I can see why it's like left wide open. Let's go back into maybe the rose-colored glasses element of she was my drug, because I think a lot of guys, especially my nice guy camp, falls into this one. We're like, yes, dear, whatever you need, dear. I'll do anything you want to, dear. I'll change whoever I am for you, dear. As long as you're happy, then I'm going to be happy, dear. Happy wife, happy life. And all of the nonsense of not only there's a giver and a taker, but you actually created a taker. Like you trained her to take from you. You weren't actually doing reciprocity. You're doing transactional exchange and calling it how I get love. So maybe a little more on like the bargaining element that you had for like, she was my drug. She got me, man. I got addicted to this thing, doing it this way. Maybe break that down a little more for my nice guys out there. They're like, I don't think he gets it. If she's just happy, I'll be happy.
Yeah, I never said that. And
no. I'm just saying that's what I see my guys do.
Yeah. Oh, a lot of guys do. Yeah. And she didn't train me. She was already doing it. I was not the first guy she'd done this to. She'd been doing it for 14 years, right? So she already had the skills of manipulation and all that before she met me. And
you maybe didn't train her.
No.
She was conditioning you.
She didn't condition me, man. I gave it away. So I'm not giving her any blame. I saw it coming and I understood what was happening, but I was prepared to do it because I was too afraid to lose her. Right?
Explain it to me then. This is maybe you're right. So explain it to me then. I know this thing's killing me. I know it's a parasite. I'm well aware of what it is. I'm doing it on purpose, and I'm deliberately on purpose letting a parasite bleed me dry. Well, maybe I missed it. What do you mean by that?
That's not exactly what I said.
You just said I already knew it. I already knew what she was doing. She didn't train me. She didn't condition me.
I already knew what she was doing. I said I already knew when I first met her that she was trouble, that she was dangerous, right? To what degree? I didn't know, right? I didn't know that fully. And I didn't know that until really afterwards fully. However, she wasn't trying to chain me. She was just being who she is. That's who she is, right? She was not intentionally saying, I got to groom him to this. It's just how she is, right? And I was prepared to give myself away, I guess, more than I've ever done before. I've never done that in a relationship before, but I was prepared to give more of myself away because I was addicted to her. I was addicted. We're living in a 7,500 square foot mansion with a sex room, and she's a sex addict. So I'm addicted to her in that way, and I'm addicted to her beauty. I wasn't addicted to her necessarily as a person, right? So we go through all this, and eventually, I did let her go, and I did try. And you said, well, why didn't you set boundaries? I did, but she just stepped over them, right, and broke them all. And then I would just justify it in my head by saying this, right? I could break up with her. And I even talked to the reader in the book. I go, you probably think I should have broken up with her, right? But here's the deal. Number one, if I had broken up with her, you wouldn't be reading this amazing fucking story, would you? You wouldn't be having such a good time reading it to the reader. And then I would say to myself, look, I got a choice here. I can break up with her, sure. And I could go back to what you might consider a mediocre life. Or I could put up with a little crazy and continue living with a freaking, and you might not say you care about beautiful. I'm going to tell you 99% of the men would care, right? So I'm living with this 5'11" former supermodel, living in a mansion with a sex room. That's a lot for a guy to turn away, right? So a lot of people go, yeah, I would put up with it too for a while, right? I put up with it for a period of time until I wasn't prepared to put up with it anymore. And then I ended it. But that doesn't matter. What matters is that I let myself, my identity slip away, and I allowed these things to happen more and more and more. And so what I had to learn was to look at the mirror that she was providing for me so I could learn these things, where I was attached, where I would give myself away. There's nothing wrong with being in a relationship with a former supermodel, having a mansion and having a sex room. Nothing wrong with any of that. The problem came because I was giving pieces of myself away. And eventually that could have destroyed me. It could take me back to the asylum, but it didn't. And I came out of it. And then after I came out of it, I really spent a lot of time studying how it happened, why it happened, what the gifts were for me, so I could walk away with a lot of healing and growth.
What are some of the things then you found? Then you said, now that I'm outside of this thing and the addiction element of this thing, which was there's a consumption that, like, if I leave this, I lose this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a reason I can control it. I can leave whenever I want. Like, we've got our pieces in here for our justification. I'm successful. I'm actually the one calling the shots here. When now you step back, you're like, I was never calling the fucking shots. So in which case, what did you say you found? Now that I can step out of this and I can look at this, these are the lessons my guys need to pay attention to. This is what I learned. What did you learn?
Yeah. Okay. How long you got? Right. Because this is going to be a long conversation. All right. So first of all, I've just said a bunch of things, right? I said that, material things won't make you happy, won't fulfill you, whether it's the woman, it's the house, the cars, whatever it is, right? So I had to learn and see, which I hadn't, my attachment, right? To let go of all that stuff. And I did. I let it all go. I let it all go away, right? Now, the other thing I had to learn was to stop hiding myself, stop running away from myself, stop feeling shame about my past, and be vulnerable. So I basically, in the book, I shed it all, everything from the electric convulsive therapy, getting ridiculed as a kid in school for having a small dick, everything all the way through to other things, many, many things, right? So it's all in the book there. So to be vulnerable. Now, I'm not suggesting that everybody should write a book and put everything they're vulnerable for in their life in a book. I did it specifically to say to other people, particularly men, vulnerability is not a weakness. It's a strength, right? And you can gain freedom through vulnerability, because once you, spill the tea, once you share that stuff, no one can ever use that against you again, because you've already put it out there. So it gives you incredible freedom. So vulnerability, authenticity, because once you've now said all these things about you hiding, and being on stage in front of thousands of people and then walking off there and feeling alone, because people would say, oh, you're amazing. And I go, no, I'm not. That's just an act, right? That's just a persona on there. That's not me as a person, right? It's not how I live. I like to, but it's not realistic. So then being able to say that and speak about yourself in a way that's authentic, be authentic. That's huge. That's massive. So the lessons, I worked with Tony Robbins. I worked with Robert Kiyosaki and tons of luminaries, and I learned a lot from them. However, none of them taught me as much as she did, the profound lessons I learned from her. So again, I'm eternally grateful to her for that, to come into my life as a master teacher. So, okay. So that's a few things. Do you want to make any comments about any of that?
Well, there's 4 different areas, or 5 different areas on this thing. So we have vulnerability, authenticity, then also the irony of like being made fun of when you were younger about having your small dick, and then now finding your identity linked to I'm with a sex addict who's hot as fuck. So let me show you who's got a small dick. It's ironic that no, I built an entire fuck you around that comment. So you want to bully me? I'll go ahead and I'll show you with my success. Right. And so I'll just outwin all of you guys. So that's interesting.
Could have been on a subconscious level, but I'll tell you, so I believe that nothing happens to you, everything happens for you, right? Even those traumas as a kid. So you go, wait a minute, how does having electric shock therapy, end up being a good thing? Well, because the reason I had it is because I was so freaking high, right? But I wasn't high on drugs. I was high on mania, right? And I had incredible spiritual experiences because of that, which led me into the spiritual arena, right? So there's the gift. What about being told you got a small dick? Well, then I had to overperform in the bedroom, right? So when I got a girlfriend and I thought, well, my dick's not going to do it, I got to figure out how to pleasure her. And so pleasuring my partner became more important than pleasuring me. And that was how I got turned on. And that's why, like in the book, people really go, how the hell do you spend 3 days in a sex room? You can't go that long as a guy. Right. But I had to have creative ways that I'd learned throughout my life of how to stimulate and give women a pleasure by tuning into them, feeling every movement they made, every look on every facial expression, all that. I learned that. I never read a book about it. I just learned it, right? And that every woman is different. You know, there's people that generalize, say, well, if you do this to a woman, do that to them. It's bullshit. You've got to learn that woman individually to understand how to give her pleasure. So that was a gift to learn. I became a bit of a savant in the bedroom, but I wouldn't have had that happen if I hadn't had that trauma when I was a kid. And it was trauma, right? It was terrible trauma to go through that. So somebody said, would you go through it again? Well, having gone through it, yeah, but I wouldn't want to go through it again. Any more than I want to go back to being with Tamaz again. I'm grateful. It was amazing. I'm blessed by the experience, but I definitely wouldn't want to go through that again.
Yeah. And so I've got the idea too, like there's an element too that your success became, it's pivotal. You probably would, if I'm guessing from hanging out with you, probably outwork people in a lot of areas to make sure that like the success element worked out pretty good. Like that's why you burned out so many times. I'll just outwork everybody. I will figure out a way to do this. Is that
No.
kind of like?
No, not at all. I wasn't really into it for the success. I was into it for the distraction, right? When I became very financially successful, I imploded it. It was like, because my dad was very successful, made a lot of money, but money was more important to him than his family. So I never wanted to be that guy. It kind of happened by accident, right? It was really teaching me a lesson. It was teaching me my judgment about money, right? So suddenly, you know, you don't want to have that because you're judging it. And suddenly you're having to go, oh shit, now I've become that guy, right? That I never wanted to be. So I could let go of judgment, which I did in the end, but I just didn't want to be attached to it. Because here's the thing that happened. This is the understanding I came to because of her, right? So I've got all this stuff, but I'm working my ass off, right? To keep it all, right? To get it. And then you get this amazing fucking house and all this amazing stuff, but you're working your ass off to get it. So you don't really get the chance to enjoy it because you're working so hard. And then it's not just because you got it. Now you got to get new stuff to replace that stuff. And now you got to go out and work for all that. And it's a never ending journey. It's never going to be enough. So initially I was kind of like, people used to say to me, well, you know, what happens if you lose it all? What happens if you lost that? And I go, yeah, it doesn't matter. It's just material things. That'd be the same. But what I realized and what she helped shine light on, that wasn't true. I was attached to it more than I realized. Right. And so when I realized that, and that happens for a funny story in the book where she cuts up all my clothes. Right. And I was a clothes whore. Right. So all these clothes that I got, in a closet, she cuts them all up. And of course, I'm not saying that, you know, by believing that nothing happens to you, everything happens for you. You're not going to get it right away. You're going to be angry. You're a human being, right? And when we're angry, we're a victim at that, right? Because we think it happened to us. That's why it's important not to stay there, right? Because if you stay there, you become a victim long term. But if you can, you know, let your anger out, your disappointment, your rage, whatever it is, and then come to the point and say, usually with resistance, okay, so this happened for me. How does this happen for me? What is the greatness in this, right? But by doing that, after she cut up all my clothes, I had to ask, okay, where's the silver lining? And, you know, initially, you're not going to get the answer because you're still pissed, right? So initially I went, well, you know, it's only clothes. You can replace clothes. And then your brain goes, that's fucking bullshit. Those were nice clothes and they cost a lot of money, right? So then I go, okay, so I had to dig deeper. And that's when finally I got to attachment. I was attached to them. I had started to think that those clothes were me, were a part of me. They were an important part of me. And without those clothes, I would be worth less. But when I got that light bulb moment and I went, holy shit, I'm not my clothes. And I began to then, of course, that's not the only thing you're attached to, right? And then you start, what else am I attached to, right? And then little by slow, you start to let go of it, not because there's anything wrong with it per se, but what's it taking from you to have it and keep it and renew it and get new? It's exhausting and it's just not worth it, right? And so I began to see that and let go of the stuff, including her in the end, right? It was me. It was in the end, it was my choice, my conscious decision not to be that. But I had to go through this, which is why I say to people sometimes, well, people say, well, I'm trying to get them out of that relationship and the person's no good for them. I say, shut the fuck up. They're exactly what they need. They're going through something. If you pull them out of it, you haven't helped them, because all they're going to do is draw the same person in a different body back in again. You got to wait until they are ready, till they've got what they need to get out of it, and then help them if they want that help. Help them to get where they want to go, but don't force them out of a relationship that actually maybe they may need that kick in the ass. And I needed that kick in the ass, right? Excuse me. So it was a good thing for me. I didn't necessarily think it was that great going through it, but I had to come out of it when I was ready. And in the end, I was ready.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of pieces here that are coming together to go, okay, I'm seeing the lesson. I'm seeing how it what happened here, how did it get here to even have that be a thing. And also an element, there was something that happened between you two where she wanted to hurt you. She
100%.
wanted to. And
Yeah.
so she's like, how do I hurt you most? Which is probably also showing what you valued most of the time. Why would she destroy clothes if you didn't really care about them? And I think that's where like linking to like, what was I going through without going like, so this is the way out, guys. But like going, guys, if you're stuck in it, this is what's happening, because people will try and do as much harm as they can when you harm them. And they'll hurt you with what they believe will hurt you most based on what you've, like, again, you said attached your identity to, which in this case was clothes. And so you're like, no, none of that matters. Like, it really did at the time. That she was trying to do as much damage as she could. And you showed her that was important to you. So she was trying to hurt you where she could. Maybe helping the guys in that area of like, do you see how the attachment thing is linked to what I was, in order for them to go, do you even see you're in the curse right now? Do you even see it? And I think that would be maybe more helpful for guys to understand more of the feeling of how is that a thing before I just go like, just, you got to get out of it, man. It just, none of it matters. And that's maybe important.
Here's the thing though. She didn't want to hurt me. Right. And that's important for a guy to understand, because you don't take it personally. She did not want to hurt me. She wanted to hurt her father. Right. Because when she was a child, her father put her in an asylum, and her father was very analytical, no emotion, never gave her the emotion she felt she needed. And then he put her in an asylum. He was a billionaire, so he cared more about his money than his children, right? And so when she did get out of the asylum, which is an amazing story, she thought she hated her father, right? And so all she wanted to do, well, first of all, and the other thing is she's incredibly beautiful. So men are around her like flies, and all she believed they could want her for, because she was not lovable, because her father didn't love her in her mind. So if my father can't love me, then no man is going to love me. And all they want is sex from me. I am going to show men. I hate men. I'm going to take men for everything they have and destroy them. Venus flytrap, right? So she didn't want to hurt me because she didn't know me. She was doing those things to me because I was a man, right? And I think, and I'm not saying this is always the case, sometimes people do want to hurt you specifically. I get it, right? But that was her MO, and that's why her father was trying to get her put in jail, because she'd been doing it for 14 years. Now, I didn't know that to begin with, right? And me and her father became good friends. So he wanted to stop her, but she was pretty strong. And anyway, that's the other story. So the bottom line is, though, you're right. It did show me that I was attached to those clothes, right? So the bottom line, that's what's really important for me, not why and how and what she really wanted to do. What was important for me to get out of it was my attachment to clothes. And some of the things she did also indicated my attachment to clothes, but she just did it because she was used to doing whatever the hell she wanted, right? She just had that, being born into such wealth, she did do whatever she wanted. And her father never put any restrictions on that. And so she just grew up with the belief that I get whatever I want, do what I want, when I want. And she did. I tried to put boundaries around it because that wasn't my upbringing. I had to work hard for everything I had, right? And had to go out and work from being very young, which I'm not complaining about. It was just a different way of being in the world, right? And so we would clash there because she would just want me to spend money on her and take care of her, and I wouldn't do it. I said, you got to get a job. I'm not buying you everything. No way, right? So there were parts of me that were putting boundaries down, but she was clever and she was manipulated, right? So she would I would say, let's go do this. And she would say, okay, yeah, I'll go do that. But she would find a way for it to be a disaster until eventually go, I'm not even doing this anymore. It's too exhausting. She's just going to find a way not to do it anyway. Right. So, but I didn't really, I mean, she took money from me occasionally, but I never really gave her much money. And she never took anything from me. In the end, the irony is, that she wanted to marry me, but I knew I couldn't marry her because that would be the end of the relationship, because the dynamic, that the tension would go, and probably once she had me, she would devour me, divorce me, take the money and go anyway. So that was never going to happen. So there was this game. It was a game of cat and mouse, or Venus flytrap on a fly. And it was exciting. It was adventurous. Sometimes I'd win, sometimes she'd win. But in the end, it was exhausting. And I just, had to call an end to it.
Yeah, so that's the part where I'm like, let's show the guys what it is then. Okay, if they're in a Venus flytrap situation,
Yeah.
like how do we get to identify that's what it is? Because the answers and the solutions are two very different things. Saying this is the answer doesn't mean they know how to solve it. And so this is where I'm kind of more in like, so how do we get them to see the lesson inside the lesson so they go, oh, I'm with one of these takers. I'm with somebody who's doing that. So that way we can get them to at least have the awareness to go, oh, so I can see the lesson that Stephen's talking about makes a little more sense for me.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I really counsel people on now. First of all, you got to recognize when you're starting to give yourself away, when you're starting to stop doing the things that made you who you are, right? You don't go to the gym anymore. Why don't you go to the gym anymore? Did you just wake up and say, I'm not going to go to the gym anymore? Well, not usually. What's going to happen is they're going to say to you, oh, don't go to the gym right now. I really need you here with me. Stay with me. And that's alluring, right? Or, you are going to go see your friends. Oh, don't go see your friends. I really want you. And here's the thing. Well, why don't you come with me? I don't want to come because I don't think they like me. Do you know what I mean? There's always going to be a reason that is going to play on the strings of your heart. And it's little by slow. These things happen, right? And then it's going to be with your family, or it's going to be with, the sport you play, hanging out with your guy friends or girlfriends. All these things, little by slow, start to get smaller and smaller until you haven't seen them in a while. And then you go, oh, what's the point? Right? And then now you're really fucked, right? Now they've really isolated you and you got nowhere to go and you don't even know who you are, right? Your identity is now reliant on them, right? And that's what they want. Or they think they want, right? Because now they have all the power, because in their mind, really, they're powerless, right? And you've made yourself powerless, right? So that's why it's a great mirror, isn't it, right? Until you can say, okay, I got to get myself back. But the best way is not give yourself away in the first place. And if they tell you their second favorite flower is the Venus flytrap, maybe consider not going down that road.
Well, I think that's the tricky part to it. And like, just, maybe I'm reading between the lines, but the pattern here looks like you're talking about how to avoid a narcissistic dynamic.
Yeah.
Right. That's what the whole book is. This is a narcissist. So you can see what it looks like. They will love bomb you. They will trap you. They will isolate you. Yeah. And then they will bleed you. And it's not even a financial thing. It's like, I will suck your soul out of your body. Absolutely. Yeah. I will convince you that it's the best idea for you to do it too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you'll actually be happy to destroy yourself until there's nothing left. So this was a narcissistic dynamic, and based on her father issue, her vengeance, her spirit of vengeance, her detachment, which her heart was probably never even open to begin with.
Right.
Like, it'll be a sales pitch with love bombing, which in this case, she knew her value came from physicality. And so in which case I can get you in here. Mm-hmm. I will wrap you around my finger and then take you from everything you've got. This wasn't for finances. This is for sucking the essence out of your existence.
Absolutely. That's correct.
So that's what I was saying. Like, I'm finding like, okay, so this book is like how to catch, like, you may be in a narcissistic dynamic here. This is a tricky thing, because the idea, and this is where I wish I could say like the answer of like, no, don't get in one of these. I wish it was that simple. These things are masters. Oh, but another thing too, let me ask a question for you. Like, before you met this girl, mm-hmm. were you in like a bounce back dynamic? You were like, I just got out of something really tough. There's a big change in my life. I was going through hard times. I'm starting to come back up. I'm on the mend now from maybe my fourth divorce or whatever it is. Like, were you on like a mend? Like you were like, I'm trying to heal up right now, and then found this one?
I was just coming out of my fourth divorce, and everything around me had just imploded. And so I was just right. The universe abhors a void, right? And so in she comes, and I'm thinking, oh, I can put all my attention in that, right? And I can not worry about all the other stuff that's going on in my life that's so chaotic, and I don't want to think about it, so I can think about her. 100%.
Yes. Well, these ones are bottom feeders, and so they're attractive. They're like those. The fish with the glowworm in the front of them or whatever. They can only work in the dark, and so like that means like I knew you were going through something really hard for you to even be at the bottom there. For her to go, I want one of these glowworms.
You're coming. They see you coming. You're opening yourself up to it, and you don't even know. Which is another thing, how you got to build your esteem. So that you don't throw yourself into something and lose yourself in something here. Screw up all your relationships, including 4 marriages. That's just the marriages. That's not even all the relationships, right? And so, yeah, I was ripe for that. And like I said, the universe said, okay, I'm going to sit you on your ass now, and you're really going to get it, right?
Yeah.
It's not to hurt you, not to punish you, but to get you to see yourself.
Well, the scavengers will take you lower than you thought you could go. That's true.
That's right.
And that's the idea is you thought that was rock bottom. Oh, let's go ahead and humble you. He's we're going to humble him a little.
Got a long way to go. Yeah,
absolutely. We're going to take you down where like there's no light down here.
Yeah, exactly.
Good. And so like I see the pattern of how this happened. Let's go back to the healing part to it. Now, like you've been imploding relationships already to even have this one go, let me get you with some shit here. You've been fucking up these dynamics. Let me get you fucked up. And so you got a pretty heavy dose of some medicine here. Yeah. What are some of the things that you figured out through just the grieving? So now I get what she is. I know what she is. I understand her thing. Now let's go to the healing part. Now I figured out things. I'm done with her. Let's hear about you. Here's how you heal, guys. When you're in this, these are the life lessons or the things that like this teaches you. And I'd like to hear some of your like, these are the wisdom nuggets that everybody needs to know. Sure.
Okay. Well, there are things you can do to not get into one, but sometimes you just have to have it, man. You're just going to go through it. So healing, it's a process. You're not going to heal overnight any more than you got into it overnight. I didn't get into that relationship the moment I was texting her what her favorite flower was. It happened a long time before that, right? I was ripe for it. So I always tell people, listen, a pound of prevention is worth 1,000 pounds of cure, right? We've all got these flaws, these patterns that were created when we're children. And the sooner you figure out what they were and heal them, the sooner you're going to have a healthy relationship. And if you don't, you're only going to take those issues into the relationship and you're going to fuck it up, right? So which way do you want to learn? The slow way or the easy, the slow, hard way or the easy way, which is a lot easier and a lot less expensive, and you probably don't have to go through 4 divorces, right? So that's first. Then when you're coming out of it, when you finally decide to come out of it, and you will, hopefully in one piece, the first thing is, the first part of the healing is getting back to yourself, getting back to your identity, being who you are again. Because if you try and heal when you're in that state of feeling of being broken, you got no esteem, those things, it's going to be really hard to heal in that place, right? And not regress, right? So, and that's what a lot of people do, isn't it? They get away from the person and then they just feel like, I got to go back because the connection is still there and the pull is so strong. So you got to make sure that pull isn't there anymore. And that's getting back to being who you are. So when I broke up with her, I had to go back to doing my meditation, doing my workouts every day, doing my juicing, all the foundational things, right? And as you do that little by slow, you get stronger and stronger and stronger again. And then you are in a position where you can really start to look at it from a different perspective. Now, most people don't do that, right? They just say, I'm just not going to date for 6 months or I'm not going to date for a year, but they don't do any work on themselves, right? And so they go back out there and of course they end up dating the same person in a different body. So once you've got yourself back on track, you're feeling better, you're feeling stronger, then you got to say, okay, it didn't happen to me, it happened for me. And that belief doesn't mean they didn't do what they did. Of course they did, right? But can you accept in some way that they did it for you? And if you can't, you got to get a book. It's called The Little Soul in the Sun, which explains it to you, right? I don't know if you've ever read it. It's a freaking amazing book. It's about 20 pages and it'll blow your mind, right? I'm going to tell it real quick, just so that, because I think people get a lot out of it, right? So there's this little soul in heaven, right? And he goes up to God and he says, God, I think I know who I am. And God says, you do? Okay, well, who do you think you are? And he said, I am the light. And God says, that's right. That's who you are. You are the light. And the little soul says, well, I'd like to experience myself being the light. Would that be good? And God says, yeah, that would be good. There's just one problem, though. The little soul says, well, what's that? And God says, well, there is nothing but the light. The little soul says, well, you're God. You think of something. So God says, I already have. But for you to experience yourself, you first have to experience what you are not. And the little soul says, what I'm not? What is it that I'm not? And God says, darkness. And for you to experience yourself, I would have to surround you with darkness. And the little soul says, well, will I be afraid? And God says, only if you choose to be. But God said, look, there's many, many ways you can experience yourself. You could experience yourself being happy. You could experience yourself being sad. You could experience yourself being forgiving. And the little soul points his head up and goes, I'd like to experience myself as being forgiving. Would that be good? And God said, oh, yes, that would be good. And then God says, but there's only one problem. And the little soul says, there's a lot of problems around here. Think of something. And God says, well, in order for you to give someone, there has to be someone for you to forgive, and there's nothing to forgive. And then all of a sudden, this other little soul that's watching this little soul having his conversation with God says, I will do something for you to forgive me for. And the little soul is shocked. And he looks at the other little soul and says, you would? But why would you do that for me? Why would you slow your vibration down to such a low level that you would do something to hurt me or smite me? And the other little soul says, because I love you. And don't you remember, you and I? We've done this many, many times before. We've been the up and the down of it, the left and the right of it, the victim and the villain of it. Oh yeah, we've done it many times. But all I ask is that when I come into your next life and I do something to hurt you and smite you, all I ask is that you remember who I really am. And the little soul says, I will. And they go running down to earth to go and have that little game, right? And as they're running down, God calls after them and said, always remember, I have sent you nothing but angels. And so I think of that story, and I think of Tamaz and other people that I thought in my life had done things to me, and I see them as a soul or a spirit. And so that is what I would recommend you guys do, is see that person not as your enemy, but in the basic form of what we are. We're all spirits having a human experience, right? They did it for you. They came into your life to show you something about yourself, and they made a big sacrifice. So thank them for that. Be grateful for that and do the freaking work, right? Look in the mirrors. And then people will say to me, well, Stephen, listen, man, this guy beat the shit out of me, right? I would never physically hurt someone. I would never mentally abuse someone. And I say, that's not the point. You might not do that, but you let him do it to you. So what does that say about you? What does that say about how you feel and think about yourself, right? That's the mirror. And that was the mirror for me, right? That was the mirror for me. Yeah, I wouldn't do that to anybody else, but I let someone do it to me. And that's about self-worth, you know? That's about the fear of not being lovable, right? So we were perfect mirrors of each other. But I had to look at it as a mirror rather than saying she did it to me, which is just too easy, right? The challenge with, accepting that it happened for you, I'm not saying it's going to be easy, right? Because people come up with all kinds of things that have happened in their lives that they feel someone did to them. But here's the issue, and I bring it down to this. Look, you got a choice. I can't make you believe it happened for you. But let me put it to you this way. If you believe it happened to you, now you got a wound. Now you got a wound. You probably already got a bunch, right? So now you got another wound, right? However, if you will commit to the belief that it happened for you, You might not find it right away. It might take you a long time. But here's the thing, you will find it. And when you find it, now you're wiser. So you do want to have another wound or you do want to be wiser? Because there's your choice, right? Nothing wrong with either one. If you still want to be a victim, then go ahead. But where's that going to get you? Where's that going to lead, right? That's a never-ending circle or never-ending cycle, right? So there's always a silver line. And I've got hundreds of examples, as do you, right? When people finally get it, right? And they will too, eventually. So that's a big part of the healing process. That belief has really saved my life, man. It saved my ass, right? Because I don't like it sometimes, when things happen. I want to believe, no, this one happened to me, right? But being committed to the belief, I go, okay, man, I'm going to find this one. This is not going to be easy, right? But I'm committed to it. So I find it, I always find it. And I've worked with many people who have had terrible tragedies happen in their life and terrible things done for them, but it feels like it's done to them and worked through it. So, at some point, someone might come up with something that I can't figure out, but it hasn't happened yet.
That's good. The story too of the little soul, it's a little deeper than I think people would understand. Like people who don't understand like those metaphors, or those are universal laws that are being said inside of like what seems like a kid's story.
Yes.
And it's a purpose of existence element of it. And I'm with you for finding the acceptance and the accountability part of it, where how do I do grace and forgiveness? It's like, well, you're supposed to learn a lesson here. And you said you wanted to take the class. And then you think that you're being abused when the class was how to manage getting through abuse. Like you signed up for the class to experience.
Yeah.
Well, what's it like to not have that? It's like, well, this is what it feels like.
Yeah.
Did you learn?
Yeah. Exactly.
And if people create an identity around like the lesson itself, then it really gets you stuck.
Yeah.
It really gets you stuck. And this is where like our mastery would have to go into, here's how I get you unstuck.
Yeah.
So people are creating their identity, or they're trying to do these like, false strategies to try to get, achievement or success or love or validation or whatever they're trying to get, their attachments that they have.
Yeah.
Like what strategies have you found have been like the most effective aside from life happening to you, for you? Because you already know it goes further than that.
Yeah.
It goes into transcendence, into life is happening, and then it goes through life happening through you and goes into true acceptance. Well,
one of the things that's helped me, this may not help everybody out there, but one of the things she taught me is, up until I was with her, you could have said, well, can everybody be healed? And I would say yes. And now I would say no, they can't. Some people are just not meant to be healed. And your idea that you can heal everybody is going to be your downfall, because there's going to come a person in your life that was sent down here to show you that's not true of everybody. And she was that person. I know now that she will never be healed and was never meant to be healed. And that's one of the lessons that she brings to people. However, it doesn't mean you go into a session and go, this fucker's never going to change. We do whatever we can, right? But there comes a point where the other person has to be willing and open to doing the work, right? That's just the bottom line. I can't heal anybody. I can't cure anybody. I can't make anybody do anything. There has to be a willingness. Now, I do go to quite extreme lengths to begin with to see the commitment in them. I said, I need to know you're committed. And then people go, what do you mean? I'm paying you a lot of fucking money. And I go, listen, you can go to the gym in January and sign up for a freaking membership, but you don't have it. People don't show up, right? That doesn't mean anything, right? So anyway, but you're still going to get people who are not willing to do it. So when people say to me, what do you do in this situation? I say, I have no idea, because I don't know the person yet. And there's no one thing that works for everybody. Every person is unique, right? And so I spend a lot of time with people really getting to understand them, as you do, right? To make sure that whatever advice I give them fits with their particular circumstance. So for example, if someone is extremely religious, I'm going to talk to them in a different way than if I speak to someone that's very spiritual, because the language is completely different. and the way they relate is going to be completely different. If someone is a, very, to any extreme, could be very misogynistic, could be very feminine. A woman can be very masculine or very feminine. So you got to relate to them on the level that they're at. One of the things I learned from Tony early on is you've got to meet people where they are in order to take them to somewhere else. Got to meet them where they already are. So that's a big part of the magic, and so, is the structure to what I do? Of course, there's structure to do what I do. That's the first thing. We got to bring them to the awareness, right? Because you can't have a transformation until someone is aware they got a freaking issue, right? And that's not always easy because we live in a world where people's self-esteem is very low to a large extent, right? People are not used to being criticized. If they get criticized, they can just walk away. I'm not your friend anymore. I'm going to leave you. I'm going to get out of this relationship, because people can do whatever they want to do, right? And sometimes people don't like to face themselves or the past, me included, right? I'm a perfect example of it, right? So I know that feeling. And again, if you're in a victim mentality, which is very prevalent too, because society makes it easy. Society wants us to be a victim. Society wants us to feel hopeless or incapable. So we stay in control of the people who really control our reality, which is a different story. But that's easy to be a victim. It's the easiest thing in the world to be a victim. It's the easiest thing in the world not to become aware or self-aware. It's always somebody else's fault. And we're kind of taught that. So to suddenly say, whoa, what are you saying? It's all my fault? You got to say, well, it's not a fault, right? You don't have a relationship problem. You just have a pattern problem, right? And you were given those patterns usually, not always, but usually when you were very young, when you weren't even aware it was happening, and you've probably carried it throughout your life. It doesn't mean you're a bad person or you did something wrong. It just means that pattern is not working for you in relationship to what you're telling me you want. That pattern is going to make it very difficult for you to have it. So that's the beginning, isn't it? Right. And then you get into the nitty gritty of what they then think is the problem, the pattern. And then what the pattern really means is not initially what we think it means, right? There's going to be so much more deeper to go, but at least we can identify where the trauma was experienced, where the pain was experienced. And then we can identify the emotion and the belief behind it, right? And then we can change those. And that's the easy part.
So you said once we identify the pattern, and then we figure out what is the definition of what they believe the pattern means. Like, this is the meaning behind what I believe the pattern is. Maybe even the strategy itself has meaning, and that's what I believe. Then you go to the emotions and the beliefs, and you can now rewire and work in there and just go like, oh, well, let's rewire the concept of your identity in a different way. And that's where,
there's not just beliefs, there's rules, there's values, there's all those things that also.
Well, I think those all fall under beliefs anyways.
Yeah, it all break down that way. And I was going to say something else as well. This is the problem with not writing that down, wasn't it? So, so it's a journey, man. Bottom line is it really comes down to low vibrational energy, which comes down to fear, right? And people don't even know there's only really 3 fears anyway. Everything comes back to what I call the 3 universal fears, which is self-worth, trust, and abandonment.
So self-worth, trust, abandonment. All right. Why are those your 3? I think I have different ones for this one.
Have you heard of the Nag Hammadi library and the Essenes and the Hermetics?
The Essenes, yeah. Oh, sure, but I want to hear your.
Yeah, I'm not claiming those to be mine.
I'm aware of them. Yes.
Yeah. So apparently those are built into the consciousness of humanity, and we're all experiencing them in one way, shape, or form or another. As everybody has some kind of fear of being abandoned and left. Everybody has some self-worth. To greater or lesser degrees. Everybody's not experiencing it to the same degree. And then trust. People think you mean trust in other people. We've got to learn how to trust in ourselves, and our connection with our Creator. We don't need intermediaries, right? You don't need someone standing in a church on a pulpit telling you what the Bible means. because it's irrelevant, right? Your life is your unique experience. And the only person who's been with you, or you want to call it a person or energy that's been with you, is your creator. And so why would your creator allow man to come onto earth and create machines and technology that means you can speak to anybody anywhere in the world without having that technology for you to communicate with them? It doesn't make any sense. It's nonsense, right? So you can communicate with your creator directly. And so I believe that the external world is pushing us inward. Because where do you find the truth in the external world anymore? You can't get it on the news, right? You can't get it on, you're not going to get it on Facebook, right? You're not going to get it on a particular program or from everybody around you, because the truth is so subverted. The only place left for us to get it is within ourselves. And I believe that is the next level of human consciousness, is going back within to where? To our heart, right? And communicating. Like the ancients said it, man, live from the heart, speak from the heart. If something is true, it will be heartfelt. And so we're coming to the point in our conscious evolution where we ain't going to get that truth in the external world. We got to go inside to get it. And so we're going to be learning, like I talked about my intuition, right? And everybody said, you say to people, well, what does your intuition tell you? You go, I don't have any fucking intuition, man. What the hell's that, right? And you go, yes, you do. You're just not aware of it. And you're just not used to using it. Now, if I was to give you a violin, I give you a Stradivarius violin, which plays beautiful music, you're not going to get beautiful music out of it if you haven't played one before, right? Doesn't matter how amazing the violin is. However, if you practice and you become a good student, you learn how to strum those strings and create beautiful music. And your intuition is the same. It's like a very fine instrument that you've got to learn how to play. And it's not easy, like if I'm playing the violin, it ain't easy, right? So, and then people say, well, how do you know if it's telling you the truth? Because, what you're really saying is get in touch with my feelings. And people go, I'm not feelings. They're bad, right? You don't want to ever trust your feelings because, your feelings will take you in the wrong direction. Well, they will if you don't know how to validate them, right? So a simple way is to say, if your intuition is telling you to go and take a shotgun to the local school and blow a bunch of kids away, that's not your intuition, right? That's not your intuition. That's your ego telling you that, right? If your intuition is telling you that, maybe, you should forgive your mom, right? For what happened when you were a kid, that's probably your intuition, right? Because it's taking you in the direction of love and the betterment of yourself. So that's just a couple of examples. But it's a process, man. And just like, becoming human was a process, becoming an adult was a process, so we're at the point where, as Conte would say, it's time to break free of our immaturity and grow up.
Okay, good. So I got you for the abandonment and trust. How does the fear of worth? How does that one come in as for fear of worth, or did you mix worth with trust?
No, 3 things, 3 fears: self-worth.
Yeah, you said worth, trust, and abandonment.
Abandonment. Those are the 3. Yeah.
What's the worth one? So, you gave a good example for how to learn to trust yourself.
You want an example of self-worth? Got you.
For the worth one, yes.
Okay. Well, we're told again. I hate to generalize, which is always a good thing to say before you generalize, right? But usually, as children, often as children, right, we're told that we're not enough. What is wrong with you? Everything you do is wrong. Why do you always mess things up, right? Things like that. And then, as you know, when we're told things for long enough, we just accept them to be true, right? And then we don't even need anybody to tell us anymore. We've got our narrator that's going on around that. Yeah, well, things, why do you wonder it never worked out? Things never work out for me. I'm just not good enough, right? And then, of course, as we go out into the world, that can also be reinforced, right? Because we live in a competitive world, and there's nobody more competitive than kids, right? And so they want to put you down they think it puts themselves back up, but it really doesn't. But they feel that that's what's happening. And so we get bombarded with all these ideas that we're not good enough, right? And then they become programmed into our minds, and then it's up to us to reprogram that. But these are what I call transparent beliefs. What do I mean? You can't see them. They're not right in front of your eyes, but you're perceiving the world through those transparent beliefs. And I'll give you a really good analogy. when an elephant is born in Africa or in any country for that matter, right? As a baby elephant, the mom's taking the elephant and she needs to go inside and see her friend to have some tea, right? I'm making a story, right? So they park the elephant outside the house and they get a rope and they tie the rope around the elephant and tie the elephant to the tree. Now, the elephant grows up into this big, massive elephant, right? But they use the same rope they did when he was a little baby. But the elephant has learned that it can't get itself away from the tree, even though it could easily do it, right? Because it's been conditioned to believe that since it was a baby elephant. So although that belief that we have about ourselves not being good enough is ridiculous, it doesn't matter. So I'll give you an example in life when, Tamaz showed me this about herself. She's stunning, right? When I go in the bathroom, we're talking and she said, I just don't feel beautiful enough. And I almost fell over, right? And I'm like, first of all, I said to her, listen, do me a favor. Don't ever say that in front of another woman because they will kill you, because they would do anything to look like you do. But you see, she was told when she was a child that she wasn't pretty. She was told that she wasn't beautiful. And that belief is still there to this day. She was told that she'd never be good enough. She was thrown in an asylum. She didn't feel like her father loved her. How could she possibly, as a young woman, feel like she was beautiful enough? And as you know, she then entered a business, modeling, which is extremely competitive, right? You need that validation constantly. And if you don't get it, you start to feel, well, I've lost it. I don't have it anymore. You know what I mean? Like athletes can get that way, right? They go out and play a great game, but they're very often afraid that the next time they play, they're not going to be able to do it anymore, right? And so she carried that with her. So there's an example. I gave you the animal example, but we do it as human beings. I know I did, right? I always thought I was overweight. I always thought that I wasn't good looking. I always thought I didn't have a big enough dick. I mean, I had a lot going on there that I had to deal with, right? So, and it stays with you, even though it's ridiculous. So what do we do in that situation? Well, I've learned skills for doing that, right? So we have to recondition our mind. We have to rebuild our identity. And there are tools that how did you learn that you were not good looking? How did you learn you were fat? Someone kept telling you. Well, what if we decide to start telling ourselves something different? What if we decide to start telling ourselves what we really want to be, how we want to show up in the world, how and why an identity is so important, right? Because everything is built on that, how we can change our identity. And using tools, now a lot of people say, well, I used to use affirmations and I said these things 1,000,000 times. Yeah, but you didn't do it right. You got to know the ingredients of how to do it properly, right? And you've got to also know, affirmations will work on your psychology if you do them right. But there's also incantations, which if you do that with ritual, you can then affect your external. There's all kinds of things you can do. I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but there are ways that we can rebuild, right? And that's what you and I help people do, right? Is to rebuild those things. And so those old ideas, those old transparent beliefs, you can disintegrate them and they're no longer there. And you live the new beliefs. And that carries with you the way you walk, your posture, everything changes. It's quite extraordinary. It's quite miraculous, I would say.
That's good. Okay. So I see the elements of how you came to these are my 3 for fear. And it's fair enough as far as you can see, I got a story that matches for the element of why I say worth, trust, and abandonment. And even the idea of doubt having the filters in which we see the world. If I believe I'm not good enough, I'll make sure I'm not good enough, that whole concept. And then for the trust, the trust self is what you said, which gets into maybe where the semantics is kind of fun. We get into I think I have a different semantic on this one.
Sure.
Is trusting self the same as having truth and authenticity?
No. So
Right.
when I say, yeah, right. So trust really, bottom line is, trusting in yourself is part of the journey. But what do we really need to trust in the end? And that is the creative force that flows through everything. You might call that God. You might call it Buddha. You might call it Allah, whatever you want, right? But it's trusting in a higher power and knowing that that higher power would never abandon you, that you can trust that higher power. And that if you're part of, not apart from that higher power, then that higher power doesn't create crap, right? You are worthy of love and everything you desire, right? So that's ultimately the trust, isn't it? Trust in that. And people don't, because they say, well, I pray for things, it doesn't work. Or, things have happened in my life that I can't believe God would have let them happen to me. Or God lets things happen in this world. How can God be a loving God? All these things, all these questions that people ask that create doubt, right? And so we have to move beyond doubt into faith, and that is that whatever happens, happens for the betterment, right? I'm not going to say nothing happens to you, everything happens for you, because I've said it a million times, but it does happen for the betterment of everything, even though it may not seem to in the moment, or when, you look around and you see what's going on, and we're getting deep into the weeds here, but what's going on in Palestine, what is going on in Ukraine. And those are just a couple of examples, right?
Well, those are, again, external, but still, like, the idea, if you're saying like truth and authenticity wouldn't have anything to do with Palestine, it would still be internal, right?
Right. Yes, correct.
Yeah. In which case, I'm still like, okay, so trust self is something people are afraid to do, which would be really just knowing the exposure of the truth of your authenticity. Like, who really are you?
Yeah.
And people will avoid that like the plague.
Yes.
You're like, how about I tell you the truth about what I see you're doing right there? Or like, hey, your mask is slipping. I can, you're wearing a mask there, bud.
Yeah.
Like, you can see, like, you got to try and manage that, because if you get too close, you'll see it's a mask. But I want you close enough to be able to give the attention that I want. But I don't want you so close that you can see that this is not really me.
Yeah.
And that's where fear would come in. This is where I can see fear of the true authenticity of oneself.
Yeah.
Not necessarily just afraid to trust myself, but afraid to actually be who you are. Is probably where I put the fears more in the avoidance, necessarily for fear. And then you have the worthiness, which is linked to doubt. And so your doubt element, which is tricky because fear is generally future. I'm afraid of what would happen if I was exposed, or if I lost everything, or if this went wrong, or if she hates me, or if I never see them again, or if I lose all my money. Fear is all possible futures. But doubt is present. Doubt is now, which makes it tricky for the rules on, like, does it work for fear, or is it separate from fear?
It works for fear. Doubt is just an extrapolation of fear, right? Because if you absolutely knew there was no harm could ever come to you, you wouldn't even have that doubt, right? You wouldn't have the doubt. So it's a part of fear. Everything comes down to those three things. I've done events where we've had hundreds of people, and I say, right, I want you to write every fear down you can think of. Every fear you can ever think of. And people come up with pages, right? And I bring them all down to those three things. And that's it. They all comes down to one of those three things. When you talk about authenticity and you talk about, what's going on, I don't know why I brought it up, but I did. Palestine, right? So it does come down to those things, right? And authenticity is a really important thing. People get attached to identities, right? That identity is not who they are. That's not their authenticity. People become attached to being a Democrat. I am a Democrat. No, you are not. A Democrat is not who you are. It's a political party. I am a Republican. No, you are not. You are not a Republican. You're a human being, right? You are attached or affiliated with the Republican Party, but everything you say after I am becomes your identity. And that's a big difference, right? So when people say, I am a Muslim, no, you're not. You might believe in the Muslim faith, but you are not a Muslim. And I am a Christian. No, you're not, right? You believe in some of those things within them. So the first thing is to separate their religion, their political persuasion from who they think they are, right? The next thing you have to realize is that who are you really? Who are you? What would you do, right? In a situation where you had people that were following you, would you want them to kill other people that are following you? Would you want them to, so you start to question the foundation of what they think they believe in, because they don't, right? Would you want to be kind to everybody? Sure. Well, why would you want to be anything else than that, right? And so you start to see there are holes in the things that they believe. I mean, I don't know if you've done this. I don't know if you ever remember the CIA, but this is how the CIA get people to flip on their countries, right? They used to say to the American soldiers when they were captured, the communists capture them and go, they give them a packet, a cigarette, have a cigarette. See, all communists are not bad, right? We just want to, we're kind, right? And I mean, let's face it, you can't say that in America, there are no homeless people, right? There are homeless people in America, right? Well, sure. That's it. That's all they need to say. It's done, right? Because they're going to get them to see all the holes and convert them, right? Now, we can do that to turn them into a communist. We can also do that to turn them into a human being, right? Into being who they really are. And, there's millions of reasons you could say we're alive, right? And there's millions of meanings that you can give things. But the meaning you give things will change your life, right? I've got an example I used when there's two young kids at home with their father watching a movie, and they're all sitting on the floor. And their father's a drug addict, right? And under the cushion of the sofa is his stash and his gun. So while they're sitting there in the middle of the movie, the door comes crashing in, and the police come in with the guns drawn. And for whatever reason, the father decides to go for his gun. And of course, they shoot him, right? They shoot him to death, right? In front of the two kids. And so the question is, what does that mean? It doesn't mean anything until you give it meaning, right? And one of the kids decided that what that meant was he was going to be a better drug dealer and he wasn't going to get caught. And that he hated police because they killed his father. And the other one decided what it meant was, I'm never having anything to do with drugs, right? And I'm going to lead a better life. And so they both did. The first kid was in and out of jail his whole life. And the other kid never had anything to do with drugs. He went to college and he got a good job. So all happened in a nanosecond of the meaning they gave that, right? And so meaning is incredibly powerful, and nothing actually has any meaning until you give it one. So giving things meaning in your life is very important. It's going to add to your identity. And then detaching yourself from things that are harming you. The challenge for in many cases is getting people to identify that what they believe is harming them, right? Or what they're doing is harming them. Because the belief is that it isn't. The belief is that it's doing for them what they want it to do. And beliefs are extremely powerful. Even though no belief is true, we just make them all up, right? But once you've made it up and it becomes true for you, and it's reinforced then, because like you say, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? And you get reinforcements to reinforce that belief is true. It's a challenge to get people to change them because it's the foundation of the life, and that is shaky, right? If their belief is they get love from being a victim, they're probably not going to give that victimness up very easily. And so that goes back to what you said earlier is, how do you heal someone, that's in that situation? I say, sometimes you got to accept you can't, sometimes you won't be able to, and that's okay too. Right. And you go, well, why is it okay? Well, imagine if you went back 300 years in time and you started telling people about the way we live today, they would kill you. I mean, literally, they would kill you. And so they should. Why? Because you are taking away from them 300 years of growth, of experiences. It's not for you to do, right? Sometimes people just got to go through their process, and you got to be, you got to be prepared to let them do it, right? And be okay with that and not feel responsible because they weren't ready. That's not a weight we need to take on our shoulders. All right, I said a lot. I know you're like, geez, this guy ever shut up? Go ahead.
No, I'm just listening to you, just seeing your perspectives. That's all. So, okay, so I have these elements here. We went into beliefs, identities, the I ams. I have a lot of pieces here where, like, there's a lot of answers. And you have the answers seem correct, right? Like, these answers are correct. And my mentors or my friends or the guys I hang out with have all confirmed these are the correct answers, right? That can be fair, right?
Well, my mentors, probably not. But
well, you said, like,
a lot of people don't, because they're where they are. I just accept them for who they are.
Okay, so you
about this with them, right? Necessarily, because I like to take some time off.
No, fair enough. I'm
Yeah.
really just I'm just repeating kind of back. Like this is like
Yeah,
I've got information,
feel
the
like
answers.
they're true for me. Let's say that.
Okay, good. So like the identity of the I am, what you say you are, you will become, and then like, well, what would you want? Also opens up the ability to start sliding in uh, changes to beliefs and manipulate. That's where the communist thing and the cigarettes and the homeless guys. And then also we give meaning to interaction or things that create our belief systems. And then that shapes our identity. And then we have to teach them detachment, and only then can they really start to really heal then. But if you try and take away the growth element of it, don't, as mentor or coach, get wrapped up into that, because if you try and skip their growth too much, they have every right to kill you. If you went back 300 years ago, don't take their growth from them.
Well, I don't know if I'd be right, but they just will. They just will, right? Because it would too scary for them. Fear would be so intense, and the powers that be then would be afraid of you, that you were going to take their power away.
They'll have to protect what they have, and some protection would have to go to some sort of either avoidance or aggravation, for sure.
Yeah,
so on this one, I do want to kind of go into the solution part a little more than the answer part, and this is where it's more helpful. So like there is a element of how do you get someone to detach, especially when identity is linked into a trauma or identity is linked into something that went really, really hard for them. There are stages and there is patterns in which people do this. And so I'm curious, I'm like, well, the answer is to understand it happened for you. That's the answer. I get that. But then how do you get a solution to go like, here's how you solve it? And instead of everybody's different, there are patterns to like, no, there are things that you have to do for that.
Yeah, well, for me, the easiest way to get people to understanding is ask them questions so they come to it on their own. It's much easier if they tell themselves rather than you tell them, right? Because if you tell them, there's resistance to that, right? So if you help them come to that conclusion by, like I said, the CIA, and all these countries and military have these same techniques, right? Is America perfect? Well, no. Now you've asked them a question and now you've opened the door, right? So asking them questions. And so when you say, and just to be clear, you said that when you're going to take someone through a transformation, there are specific things that you do to do that. Is that what you said?
Yes.
And I haven't given some of those examples?
You've given the answers, but not the way to do the solution. You've given stories and analogies and metaphors, but not solutions.
Okay. I'm not getting that. So can you do me a favor? Can you give me an example of a solution?
Perfect. Okay. So if I see somebody whose identity is linked to a trauma, most people are going to do what you said. And in fact, it's trained mostly today in psychology to go into helping them discover belief systems or even go through the emotions that are attached to belief systems to make it so we can try and rewire the beliefs, because beliefs are much easier to rewire than values or even control the storm of emotions. So it makes sense to go into emotions may be very difficult. They change like the weather. But belief systems we live and die for, and beliefs are linked to our identity directly because we live and die by our beliefs. And you're correct. Those are the filters. But if I'm going into just beliefs first, I didn't rip the core out. And that's why I was wondering why the answer is they have to figure it out themselves as I ask them questions. But I mean, there's no direction. When I work with people, almost every element of trauma or loss or, pain is linked to grief. Every single part of it, even your whole entire story to start off with, was linked to identity from pain and loss. Well, then that would mean I have to go into your grieving system. That's where your identity got tied up, is you lost the authenticity of self. You live in denial towards truth. You've created a protection system to not die anymore because of how much you've lost or to keep what you still have. And so people are now trying to survive. But I have to get them through their bargaining of what's valuable to them. I have to get them acceptance of truth. I have to go through the anger and the emotion of being able to see what's your moral compass and who the hell are you to what you believe is right and wrong, and then go through sadness, because the depth of your sadness is linked to your empathy. You cannot have compassion for somebody if you've never even experienced the emotion. So experiencing the emotion now means when somebody's going through something difficult, I now can create connection to help you get a direction. But if I don't go into your grieving system and I stick just to the belief system, this is like me trimming a tree and never getting to a root, which means it keeps growing back, and you may do maintenance, but you never actually get removal. So until you can go through effective grieving systems, I think we're just doing management, coping, or medication at that point. And that's the same thing they teach in psychology today. It's not growth. It's identity still to it, but now it's got a different level of like, I know it happened for me, but why does it still hurt so damn bad? It's like, we didn't grieve it. We just put another label on it. And that creates a whole nother issue, because now I got the correct answer, but I didn't solve it, which means I know the answer looks like this. I know Stephen told me all the colors look the same on each side. And he said, I'll figure it out on my own, but I'm sitting here fucking spinning this damn thing. And I know what it's supposed to be, but I don't know why it still has the anger, the sadness, or resentment. He said, I'm supposed to let it go. He said, I'm supposed to forgive. He said, I'm supposed to be okay when I just understand that it happened for me. I know the answer, but why isn't mine doing it? It doesn't make any sense. So that's why I was asking, well, what are the steps to make it so that we can solve the cube? Because I do meet a lot of people who have the greens down. They got the greens, but the rest of the cube isn't done. And so they want to become like, hey, I'm going to teach you how to get the greens. But that actually isn't solving the cube. So that's why I was asking, well, what are the solutions, instead of just, well, these are good answers. And that's what I meant.
And that's what you believe, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's your belief, right? And if that's your belief, it'll work for you. Maybe it'll work for your clients. I don't believe that for a second. Let me tell you why. Because what you're trying to do is cover everything and think you're going to create the perfect human being. It's never going to happen, right? You're not going to have someone that can get all the greens, all the yellows, all the reds, all the blues. What we're doing is finding a way to help them with something particular, or a few things in particular they're dealing with in their life. And you don't have to give them all the way through the grieving process. The change can happen in an instant, right? And let me give you an example. So during the war, it was the Second World War, there was an American pilot who was one of the best pilots, and he killed more Japanese pilots than anybody else. And he was going to take a break. They said, listen, you got to take a break. So he landed, and I don't remember the name of the airport or where it was, one of the Japanese islands, right? So he got off his plane and he was walking across the tarmac. And while he was doing that, there was a dogfight going on in the air, right? And the American shot down the Japanese plane, and the pilot was thrown out of the airplane. That pilot landed on the tarmac in front of him. He didn't need to go through a grieving process. He did not need to go through any psychological tools. He changed in an instant. He said, I'll never fly and fight again. Boom. Now, before that happened, his belief was a great thing, that he was serving America and that he was the best pilot in the American Air Force. And he felt great about that. But you can change in an instant, Rick. You don't necessarily need to go through a process, right? Because
what was his trauma? Let's look at it things. I get this story, I understand, and this is kind of where I'm going to actually challenge you a little bit to speak.
All right, good. Let's get to it, man. This is where we get this.
Talk to me with competency here. So you don't have to give me long stories to understand an idea.
All right, hang on. Let's just back up a second. Let's not attack each other, right?
I'm not attacking. I'm just
hang on.
Let you know.
Finish what I'm going to say, because you said talk to me with competency, which infers that I wasn't, right? So, and I'm not going to say you talk to me with competency, right? Because that's not going to get anywhere. So let's just be nice. Let's be respectful. Instead of, and this is what I feel from you coming a little bit, you're trying to be superior, and you're not.
I'm not. I think this is you, Doc. You're projecting on me.
Hang on a second. You keep interrupting me. Let me finish.
You're making accusatory statements to be right.
Put your ego back in your pocket a second, right?
You're gaslighting the fuck out of me, dude.
You're getting upset because I'm trying to talk. Let me finish, right? Let me see you laughing because that's showing that I'm right.
No, you're gaslighting me. That's not right.
I'm not gaslighting you, man.
Yes,
you're gaslighting me. You're telling me that your way is the only way. And it is.
I sure didn't say that either.
You did. You said, because I said that you don't have to go through all this psychology to get there, and you didn't like it. I mean, anybody who can see
I
it.
never said that either. You're gaslighting me again. Doc, you don't have to do this.
You're gaslighting me, right?
No, I'm not. Now you're trying to.
We're having an argument. I don't want to argue with you, man.
We're not arguing. You're
Well,
making up
I
my
am
answers for
now,
me.
because you're not letting me finish what I was going to say. You're doing it again. Let me finish. Just let me finish, and then I'll let you finish. Okay? Is that fair? That's how you have a conversation, man. One person speaks and then the other responds. Is this how you are in your sessions, where you're just arguing with somebody? Doesn't make any sense, does it? Right? So let me finish. I'll talk with competency, right? For a change, according to you, right? That's very, very negative way to speak to somebody. And coming as someone who knows all these psychological tools, that is not a good sign, my friend. All right? That's not a good sign. So anyway, I don't remember what we were talking about, to be honest. So you go ahead and share what you wanted to say.
What I'm saying is, I appreciate you telling the stories. If the stories are for the listener, cool. But if you want to prove a point with me, I don't require a long story to do so.
Okay. So
that's what I'm saying.
I'm not proving anything to you. I am talking to your listener because that's what we're here for. I'm not here just to have a conversation between you and I. I'm considering your listeners and how they would understand.
Which is great. Now, I'm saying, let's talk with you and me, because you said I absolutely do not agree. Now, I will tell you, I hope you watch back at this thing, because you do say things that I didn't say that are mine. Those are not mine. You have been saying, well, you're saying they have to do this, and you're perfect. You said, you're going to cover the perfect human being. These are things I did not say. And I would say, please watch back and say, you do add things to what I'm not saying as my own. And the more you create a straw man argument for me to say, you are saying that the only way to do it. I'm like, I never said the only way to do it. These are also dangerous within conversations. And to insinuate you're just trying to be superior to me while you try to create a control system in the conversation is the exact projection of what you're saying. I'm just saying these are the tricks in the conversation. We don't need to do those. I'm agreeing we don't need to argue, but I would say, please, don't add things to what I'm saying that I never said as a point of saying, here's why I don't agree with you, because I never said those things. In fact, I've done a lot more listening than talking in this conversation. So in this one, the belief system is saying like, oh, because that guy was on the tarmac and he didn't have to go through a trauma grieving system in order to change his mind or opinion on his identity. Well, that's great. But how many people are you working with who are struggling with the trauma they went through or the things they went through as their identity? And they can't break the cycle, no matter how much you said, hey, you got shot down. That was for you, dude. And you're like, fuck, but I'm still bleeding, And so the tarmac guy is great. But when you're talking to some of the people who have been through real shit, and I don't think you understand it, I'm the guy they call when nobody else can help them. I'm the suicide calls. I'm the people who are fucked. I'm the ones you call for that, because some of these techniques are missing elements that person needs. And so while some of the answers might be good, they're missing huge elements of what that guy may need in those moments. So it's not a one size fits all. My way is the only way, or my arrogance at all. In fact, the entire conversation we've had, there's been a high element of superiority in the call. You mask it as humility, but it's not. And so I'm asking questions for clarity, for solutions without deflection or gaslighting. I don't see how that works for us either. So I'll leave it there. I don't see that part.
Hang on, you're leaving it there. I got to respond, right?
Yeah.
So first, hang on, let me finish. You did say it's the only way. If you don't get to the grief and get to the tentacles of the grief, you have to do that. It's the only way. You did say that, right? And then you said, I don't need your stories. Again, thinking I'm talking to you. I'm talking to the audience. And the fastest and best way for people to learn is through stories. So don't negate stories, my friend. And you said that some of the techniques I've given were missing something. I never said that every or any technique that I was sharing with you was the be all and end all to anything. In fact, I said, I really don't want to give you techniques because there's not one that's going to fit all. There's going to be lots of techniques that will work in different situations. And I find out all about the history of the person, their background, what religion they are, what beliefs they have, before I will do anything, right? So go ahead.
No, I'm agreeing, and that's what I'm agreeing with you. And speaking in absolutes, I'll be real with you. I can agree that you weren't saying 100% absolutes. I'll agree with you there. I also didn't either, because I know that's not true.
No,
So
but
I don't believe in absolutes on
you
this either.
did say if you don't get to these, the grief, you've got to get to that to create healing. And you did say, then there's this, and you use the Rubik's Cube, right? As any time, you got to get to this, you got to get to that, which means they had to get every side, which means in
I agree
anybody's
with you.
mind, right? Well, you didn't say it exactly, but you inferred it categorically that unless you get someone perfect on all four sides, or how many sides a Rubik's Cube has, right? That you haven't done the work. And I don't agree with that. And so you did say, A, that they have to do certain things to be healed. 2, you did say that you have to get all of the facets out to be able to give people what they need. And very often you don't have that long. And then you told me at the end that you take the suicide calls. Well, we haven't been talking about suicide, right? We haven't been talking about that. We've just been talking about people generally having patterns, right? We didn't get into with this work. If
I'll take it back then. I'll take it back. I actually do stand by this then. You're right. I actually do stand by. I believe to do real transformation, you need to teach them all the sides in the cube. You're right.
Okay.
Wait, and
you're right. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just saying I agree with it.
Hold on. I will say that I believe that is right.
Okay.
And so we do not have to agree on this. I do believe helping somebody through mind, heart, body, spirit, even on their finance side and all this, there's 6 sides to the cube. I believe getting all your elements is important. And I believe that you can learn how to solve a Rubik's Cube. I believe that's possible.
Yeah.
So I do believe that anybody can learn the skills to do this. And I do believe each side requires time, effort, and understanding. And in order to get to true acceptance by not having a grieving system or a system to be able to understand denial, bargaining, anger, sadness, which is both mind and energy for heart or spirit, if you don't have those, you're really going to struggle with the belief systems actually ringing true authenticity, because you're not actually being true. And creating more masks or more validations or more systems or structures to get what you want without actually getting to those things, you're right. I'll stand by. There's a way to solve the cube, and we can teach it. And I don't think that you can teach somebody how to solve the cube without going through understanding grief. And I'll stand by it. That I do agree with.
Well, I'm not saying that isn't true, but we don't always have that long, right? And we can't always do all those things. So what we want to do is do the best we can for as long as we can. But the most important thing that we need to do initially is get them out of this trauma that they keep repeating in their life. And if we do that, there's a good chance they might stay with us for longer, but there's also a chance they might not, and they'll go back and they'll have other issues, but not that one. I still have issues, man. I'm not the full cube. And I've been working on this stuff for 40 years, right? So, and I'm not saying I'm the fastest learner or the sharpest tool in the shed, but I'm pretty sharp, right? So, we're not, I just, to me, it felt like, and you didn't say this categorically, but you are saying it now again, inferring it, that if you can't get all the sides, which sounds like it's perfection, then they're still going to have issues. Dude, we're going to have issues until we die. There is nobody that is not going to have any issues until they die. It's just not possible.
Perfection is different than understanding how to do competency. So if somebody can solve the cube, it didn't say nothing's going to happen to mess your cube up. Things happen to mess your cube up. I got it. But of course, then life happens. Something will happen. The issue for what I do, and this is why it is different, maybe how we do it, I spend a lot more time with people. I have years with people because we have to get all the sides.
Yeah.
I don't teach them like, hey, just understand it can be worked differently. I'm like, look, if I teach you how to solve the cube, you don't have to be concerned when life happens that messes your cube up. And people get afraid to let their cube get messed up instead of going, it's okay that you messed my cube up. I know how to solve it, dude. It's fine. Yeah. Yes, life is going to happen. Yes, I'm going to have a death in the family. Yes, I'm going to lose money here. Yes, business will go crazy. Yes, I just know how to solve it again. Oh, shit, this went out of rack. It's like, it's fine. I'm not going to freak out about it. I just know how to solve it back in. The blues. I know how to do it. So when I say know how to solve your cube, it doesn't mean you're a perfect person. It just means I don't freak out when things happen anymore.
Yeah. Well, that's a different thing. And so, semantics, man.
No, it is. It's all semantics. In fact, our business is semantics.
Well,
That's
anyway,
why.
whatever it is. I have to go because I've got another appointment coming up, man. But
Of course.
I've enjoyed, as you might not think so, I enjoyed it. I love being
No.
challenged. Hopefully you don't mind being challenged.
No. It's totally fine. It's totally fine. I love it. Like you're not bothering me at all.
No, me either. But listen, man, I want to say thank you for having me on your show, and thank you for challenging me. And I hope you know it was done in good faith. And
I'm good.
we feel passionately about what we do, which is a good thing, man. It's a good thing. So I hope we can do it again. I'm doing my own podcast now, and if you'd be interested, you'd like to come on and challenge each other again, I'd love to have you on there,
I'm
man.
a monster on it. People don't usually publish when I'm on shows. So if you want, if you got that bravery, I'll do it. But
Yes, man, I'm as brave as you. I'm not going to back down on that one. I love what I do, and I'm passionate about what I believe, and I can see that in you too, man. You are authentic. You are authentic. I'll give you that, right? Because you're not going to let anybody push you around on what you believe, and neither will I. And that's why, sometimes these kind of conversations build the greatest friendships, and I hope that's the same for us too.
I'm good with it. Sounds good. Yeah, if you ever want to do something like that, sure, sounds good, Stephen. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Ray.
You're welcome.
Click on the button and you can become the hero in your own story. It's time to start making the choices to change. And the evolution that you're going to do begins with choosing the next step. This is the way. And together, we're always stronger.